Forgiving someone doesn't mean you have to invite them back into your life. It means you're choosing to release the weight of resentment, not the wisdom of experience. If someone repeatedly breaks your trust, forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It means saying, I release the anger, but I also choose to protect myself. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but isn't forgiveness about reconciliation, about being the bigger person? That's what a lot of us were taught. Growing up, I remember hearing things like, just let it go, or they said sorry, what else do you want? And for a long time, I thought that meant I had to make things right with everyone who hurt me, that I had to keep the door open even when I didn't feel safe. But here's what I've learned. The idea that forgiveness always means reconciliation, that's a myth, a dangerous one. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself. It's about saying, I refuse to let this pain take up permanent space in my heart. And that is powerful because when we don't forgive, we carry the weight of that hurt everywhere we go. It seeps into our relationships, our choices, even the way we see ourselves. Resentment is exhausting. It keeps us emotionally tied to a moment we wish never happened, to a person who may not even deserve that space in our lives anymore. But here's where it gets tricky. Sometimes we rush to forgive because we think it's the only way to move forward. We tell ourselves, if I forgive them, this won't hurt anymore. But forgiveness doesn't erase pain. It doesn't undo what happened. And if we force ourselves to forgive before we've processed the hurt, we're not actually healing, we're bypassing it. That's why true forgiveness isn't about pretending. It's about integrating the lesson. There's a psychologist, Everett Worthington, who has spent years researching forgiveness. He talks about two kinds, decisional forgiveness and emotional forgiveness. Decisional forgiveness is when we choose to forgive. We say, I'm not going to seek revenge. I'm not going to hold on to this bitterness. It's an intellectual choice. But emotional forgiveness, that's when our body actually lets go of the resentment. That's when we don't get triggered every time we hear their name. That part takes time and it cannot be rushed. What's even more important is understanding that forgiveness does not mean reopening the door to a relationship that isn't healthy. We can forgive and still say, I love myself too much to let this happen again. In fact, the strongest boundaries often come from a place of deep forgiveness. It's when we say, I'm at peace with the past, but I've also learned from it. It's when we recognize that some people are better loved from a distance. If someone in your life has broken your trust, forgiveness is your decision, but their access to you, that's something entirely different. And if someone keeps showing you through their actions, not just their words, that they haven't changed, then forgiving them doesn't mean putting yourself back in harm's way. It means choosing to release the anger while also protecting your heart. The real challenge here isn't just about whether to forgive or not. It's about trusting ourselves enough to know what forgiveness should look like in each situation. Do we let go of the grudge but keep the boundary? Do we work toward rebuilding trust because the relationship is worth it? Or do we accept that some apologies are only words and real closure comes from within? So maybe the question isn't just, should I forgive? Maybe the better question is, what kind of healing do I truly need? There are moments when the most courageous thing we can do is walk away. Research on self-worth and boundaries tells us that when a relationship consistently diminishes us, when it erodes our confidence, our peace, or our sense of self, letting go isn't giving up, it's refusing to abandon ourselves. Letting go isn't about bitterness. It's about making space for the love and respect we actually deserve. But let's be honest, letting go can feel like failure. It can feel like we're giving up on someone we once believed in. And for a lot of us, especially those of us who were raised to be fixers, the ones who hold everything together no matter how much it costs us, walking away feels unnatural. We tell ourselves, maybe if I just try harder, maybe if I explain it differently, maybe if I love them enough, they'll finally see me. But here's what I've learned the hard way. You cannot make someone value you by sacrificing yourself. And yet, we do it over and over, not because we don't know our worth, but because we were taught that letting go means we didn't try hard enough, that leaving means we failed, that staying, no matter how much it hurts, is proof of our strength. But that's not strength, that's self-abandonment. And the truth is, There's nothing noble about losing yourself to keep someone else comfortable. There's a study by Dr. John Gottman, one of the leading researchers on relationships, that found that contempt is the biggest predictor of relationship failure. Not anger, not even conflict. Contempt, it's that feeling of being unseen, unheard, disrespected. And when that shows up consistently, it's a flashing red light. Because contempt erodes self-worth. It makes us question ourselves. It keeps us in a loop of trying to prove that we're enough to someone who has already decided not to see us fully. Now, this doesn't just apply to romantic relationships. This could be a friendship where you're always the one reaching out, always the one making the effort. It could be a family dynamic where you feel like you have to shrink yourself just to be accepted. It could be a job where your contributions are ignored, but your silence is expected. Letting go isn't just about saying goodbye to a person. It's about recognizing when a situation no longer aligns with the version of yourself you're trying to become. And I know, it's scary, it's messy. The hardest part of letting go isn't making the decision, it's sitting with the silence afterward. It's the in-between space where you're no longer holding on to the old, but you haven't quite found the new. It's the urge to run back because loneliness feels worse than being undervalued. But here's the thing. When you let go of what's breaking you, you create space for what can build you. And that space, that's where healing happens. That's where self-respect takes root. So maybe the real question isn't, should I let go? Maybe it's, what would change if I finally chose myself? Apologies are easy. Change is hard. The difference between someone who deserves forgiveness and someone we need to let go of isn't just their words, it's their consistent actions over time. Research on trust tells us that genuine change shows up in patterns, not promises. If someone keeps saying they'll do better, but the behavior stays the same, that's not growth, it's a cycle. Most of us have been there. Someone apologizes, maybe they even cry, they say all the right things. I didn't mean to, I'll never do it again. You have to believe me. And for a moment we do. We want to. Because the alternative, accepting that they may not actually change, is painful. It forces us to confront a truth we don't want to face. That some people are more committed to keeping us close than they are to actually being better. One of the most powerful things I've learned in studying trust and relationships is that real change isn't about what someone says in the moment. It's about what they do consistently over time. Dr. Harriet Lerner, who has done incredible work on apologies, says that a true apology doesn't just come with words, it comes with changed behavior. And that's where we get stuck because we confuse remorse with transformation. We assume that because someone feels bad, they must be willing to do the work. But here's the truth. Regret is an emotion, change is a decision. So how do we tell the difference? One of the biggest red flags is when someone keeps making the same mistake but expects a different response. They expect grace, they expect patience, they expect us to believe that this time will be different. But patterns don't lie. If someone's behavior follows the same cycle, harm, apology, temporary improvement, repeat, that's not growth, that's a loop. And staying in that loop doesn't make us forgiving, it makes us exhausted. Trust isn't built in a grand gesture, it's built in small, consistent actions over time. It's built in the moments when no one is watching. It's built when someone chooses to be honest even when lying would be easier. When they show up when it's inconvenient. When they take responsibility without being forced. Trust isn't just about believing in someone's words. It's about having enough data to believe in their behavior. And here's where it gets even harder. Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones we have to hold accountable. And that's terrifying. Because love makes us want to see the best in people, but love without boundaries isn't love, it's permission. And when we keep giving people permission to hurt us, we're not being loyal to them, we're being disloyal to ourselves. So maybe the real question isn't, do I forgive them? Maybe it's, do their actions align with the kind of trust I need to feel safe? Sometimes we overthink decisions that our body already made. Neuroscience tells us that our nervous system picks up on emotional safety long before our brain does. Ever notice how your stomach knots up around certain people? Or how you breathe easier when you're away from them? That's your body talking. If you constantly feel drained, anxious, or small in someone's presence, it's worth asking, is this a relationship I need to forgive and nurture, or one I need to release for my own well-being? We like to think we're purely rational beings, that if we just analyze a situation enough, we'll find the right answer. But the truth is, our bodies are processing information before our brains can even catch up. Our nervous system is scanning for emotional danger all the time without us even realizing it. And when something feels off, that's not paranoia, that's wisdom. Here's what's fascinating. Research on trauma and emotional resilience shows that our bodies store relational pain. If you've ever flinched when someone raised their voice or felt an overwhelming sense of unease around a person who has hurt you before, that's not you being overly sensitive. That's your nervous system remembering. That's your body saying, hey, we've been here before, and last time it wasn't safe. And yet we talk ourselves out of it. We gaslight ourselves. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe they didn't mean it that way. But our bodies don't lie. Our minds can rationalize almost anything, but our bodies, they don't negotiate. This is why emotional exhaustion is such a powerful clue. Pay attention to who drains you and who energizes you. Some relationships leave you feeling light, seen, and whole. Others leave you feeling like you're walking on eggshells, like you have to shrink yourself just to keep the peace. And that's the thing about emotional safety. It's not about how much history you have with someone. It's about how your body feels in their presence. Now, this doesn't mean that every uncomfortable feeling means we should walk away. Discomfort is part of growth. Hard conversations are part of connection. But there's a difference between discomfort that leads to healing and discomfort that signals harm. One pushes us toward a deeper, more authentic relationship. The other asks us to ignore ourselves to keep the relationship intact. And that difference, it's everything. So the real challenge isn't just, can I forgive? It's, does my body feel safe enough to stay? Forgiveness and letting go aren't about fairness. They're about freedom. We think that if we hold on to the hurt, if we keep replaying what happened, somehow we'll get justice. But justice and healing aren't the same thing. One keeps us looking backward, waiting for something that may never come. The other asks us to move forward, even when there's no apology, no closure, no acknowledgement of the harm that was done. And that's hard because sometimes the people who hurt us the most never take responsibility. They never say, I see what I did. I understand how it affected you. Instead, they minimize it. They rewrite the story, or worse, they pretend it never happened. And that can feel unbearable. Like, letting go means saying their actions were okay, but letting go isn't about them. It's about us. It's about deciding that our peace is more important than carrying the weight of their wrongdoing. There's a study by Dr. Frederick Luskin at Stanford University that found that people who practice forgiveness have lower stress levels, better heart health, and even stronger immune systems. Not because they ignore the harm, but because they refuse to let it take up permanent space in their lives. The research is clear. When we hold on to resentment, it doesn't just live in our minds, it lives in our bodies. It affects our sleep, our ability to focus, even the way we show up in other relationships. But here's the tricky part. Sometimes we think we've let go, but really, we're still carrying it. We've just buried it. We avoid the topic, we pretend we don't care. We tell ourselves we've moved on, but then something small, a name, a memory, a familiar tone of voice, brings it all back like it never left. Because real letting go doesn't happen with time alone. It happens when we decide to release the pain, not suppress it. And that decision, it's an act of self-love. It's saying, I will not let this define me anymore. It's not about excusing the behavior or pretending it didn't matter. It's about reclaiming the energy we've spent carrying it. Because the truth is, we cannot rewrite the past, but we can decide how much power it has over our future. So maybe the question isn't, will I ever get the closure I deserve? Maybe it's, am I willing to give myself the closure I need? At the end of the day, forgiveness and letting go are not about weakness. They're about strength. Strength to release the pain without erasing the lesson. Strength to trust ourselves enough to know when to stay and when to walk away. Strength to choose peace over proving a point. Healing isn't about waiting for the apology that may never come. It's about making a decision. I will not carry this weight any longer. And that choice, that's where freedom begins. So, whether today is the day you forgive, the day you let go, or the day you finally stop second guessing what your heart already knows, trust yourself. You are worthy of relationships that feel safe. You are worthy of a life that feels light. And you are worthy of a love, starting with your own, that does not require you to betray yourself just to keep it. Good luck, and may you always choose what honors your heart.